Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Really glad you could join us today. We're diving into something pretty fascinating. Lots of ambition, plenty of challenges, all wrapped up in global economics. Our mission, like always, we take this stack of interesting sources, pull out the key stuff, the important bits to get you right up to speed. Today, it's all about Mercosur. That's the Southern Common Market. Have you ever heard that phrase? Our North is the South. That's their motto. And it really hints at this unique vision they have for integrating South America. So we're going to unpack its origins, which are quite surprising, its membership roller coaster, its economic weight, and the complexity is just bubbling under the surface. We've got loads of research ready to go.
Yeah, and just to give you some context, Mercosur isn't, just another name on a list of trade agreements. It's really crucial for South America. It was set up formally by the Treaty of Asuncion back in 91, then firmed up with the Protocol of Agua Prieta in 94. The core idea, always been about free trade within the group and making sure goods, services, even people and money can move smoothly between the members. And what's really interesting, I think, is the scale of it. It's often underestimated outside South America. Globally, right now, it's about the fifth largest economy by GDP. Using that purchasing power parity measure, we're talking roughly $5.7 trillion nominal GDP in 2023. And that makes it the fourth biggest trading bloc out there, right after the EU. So it carries some real weight.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that. Because Mercosur, it didn't just, appear fully formed. Its roots go way back. There's this whole long, sometimes kind of frustrating history of attempts to integrate Latin America economically long before 1991. Think about things like LAFTA, the Latin American Free Trade Association from 1960, or its successor, LAIA, in the 80s. And this isn't just like dusty history. You've got competing national interests, the aftermath of wars after independence, even this failed attempt at a customs union between Brazil and Argentina during World War II back in 1941. Duh. So when you think about all that baggage, the fact that Mercosur actually got off the ground and stuck around is, pretty remarkable. Shows what they had to overcome.
Exactly. And against that whole backdrop, past failures, old rivalries, the real spark for the Mercosur we know today, that came in 1985, the Foz do Iguaçu Declaration. This was huge. It was between President Sarney of Brazil and President Alfonsín of Argentina. And the timing is critical here.
Yeah.
Both countries had literally just come out of these long, harsh dictatorships. They were drowning in foreign debt, and they desperately needed to reconnect with the world economy. So the shared, really difficult situation, it wasn't just about needing to cooperate. It was like this powerful, almost existential realization that they had to work together to rebuild, to secure their democracies. That common need, that's often the secret sauce for these blocs.
And it gets even better. After that declaration, they didn't just talk. They actually launched something concrete.
Yeah.
The Argentina-Brazil Integration and Economics Cooperation Program, PICE. And here's the really cool details. Shows you how ambitious they were early on. Protocol number 20 of that program, it actually proposed a regional currency. They called it the gaucho.
Gaucho, yeah.
Imagine that. The gaucho is a common currency. It really shows how bold those initial integration dreams were.
It's a great historical nugget, isn't it? Really shows the depth of what they were thinking. So those early steps between just the two of them quickly broadened out. By 1990, you had President Collor in Brazil and President Menem in Argentina signing the Buenos Aires Act. And they set this incredibly ambitious goal, total customs integration by the end of 94.
Wow.
That really signaled things were serious. And pretty soon after, Paraguay and Uruguay, they saw the potential, showed interest, and officially jumped on board the process.
So that leads us to the actual founding, 1991 Treaty of Asuncion. Monumental agreement. And initially, it set up a free trade zone between the four: Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay. Goods could flow freely. That was a massive step.
Right. And it didn't stop there. It evolved pretty quickly. By January 1st, 1995, it became a full customs union. Now, for you listening, what that means is, okay, you got the free trade inside the zone, no tariffs between members, but also you get this single common external tariff. So any goods coming in from outside Mercosur, it doesn't matter if they land in Brazil or Uruguay, they face the exact same import duty. The implications were huge. It meant, freer movement of goods, services, capital, labor. It set up that crucial common tariff. It started the process of coordinating national policies, trade, agriculture, industry, even money and taxes. And it meant everyone had to start aligning their laws. And to manage all this new complexity, they set up bodies like the Common Market Group and the Common Market Council right at the start.
Okay, so we have the history, the economic setup. But what does this mean for who's actually in the club and who's out? Because Mercosur's membership list, Well, it's definitely not static. It's been a real roller coaster full of twists and turns that, frankly, show you just how dynamic and sometimes messy regional politics can be.
Oh, absolutely. So right now, your full members are Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Then you've got this category of associated states that includes Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Guyana, Panama, Peru, and Suriname. They usually get preferential trade deals but aren't tied into the full customs union rules.
Okay. And then there are observers, like Mexico and New Zealand. They can kind of sit in on discussions, but no binding commitments. And just to show it's still evolving, Panama actually applied to become an associate member just this past July in 2024. Shows there's still interest in joining up.
But yeah, it hasn't exactly been smooth sailing to get everyone on the same page, has it? Let's get into some of the controversies, starting with Venezuela, they're joining, and then getting suspended. Venezuela came in as an associate in 2004, then got full membership in 2012. But that happened right when things were pretty politically charged within the bloc itself.
That's a really critical point, because Paraguay itself was suspended back in June 2012.
Ah, right.
Yeah, because their president, Fernando Lugo, was removed from office very quickly, and the other Mercosur members said, hold on, that doesn't meet our democratic standards. And it was right during that Paraguayan suspension that Venezuela, somewhat controversially, was brought in as a full member.
Yeah, so it really does raise that big question, doesn't it? How much do the internal politics of one member state sway the whole bloc's decisions about who's in and who's out? You see that tension there between just economic goals and these shared democratic values, and how that tension can sometimes be, well, exploited or become a real point of conflict.
And then, wow, the tables turned pretty dramatically, didn't they? By August 2016, you had Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay back in the fold, all questioning whether Venezuela was actually meeting the democratic and human rights rules needed for full membership. So Venezuela gets suspended in December 2016 because they didn't update their laws. Was that purely about democracy, do you think, or were there maybe some underlying political shifts or economic calculations going on among the other members, given how politics were changing in South America around then?
That's exactly the knotty issue, and it really speaks to how the bloc itself changes character over time. It grew even more serious. August 5th, 2017, the suspension becomes indefinite. The reason given, a rupture of the democratic order in Venezuela. But here's what's really telling. Even with that strong stance on democracy, trade, and migration policies, they mostly stayed the same.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it reveals this kind of pragmatic balancing act. The bloc wanted to uphold its democratic rules, sure, but maybe without making the social crisis inside Venezuela even worse. It suggests that sometimes, economic stability or humanitarian worries can kind of temper the strict enforcement of political rules. We saw calls later in 2019 for free, fair, and transparent elections in Venezuela, and more recently, Maduro has tried to get Venezuela back in. So it's this constant test of Mercosur's commitment to democracy.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, maybe something less dramatic but still significant. Bolivia's journey. They signed the membership protocol way back in 2012, got formally accepted in 2015, but their full membership status only just got finalized, officially completed in July 2024.
Yeah, quite the long haul.
Talk about a long road. And now Bolivia has 4 years to get its national laws aligned with all the Mercosur rules. That's not just paperwork, right? It really underscores the huge amount of legal and administrative work that true economic integration demands from a country.
It really does. It's a massive undertaking.
And just to show you things are always moving, sometimes the friction is over really practical day-to-day stuff, like that Mercosur waterways diplomatic crisis that flared up in July 2023.
Ah, yes, the river fees.
Exactly. Tension between Argentina and basically all its neighbors, Paraguay, Bolivia, Uruguay, Brazil, over fees for using the rivers. It sounds maybe minor compared to suspending presidents, but fights over shared resources, like vital rivers, they can escalate fast. It kind of shows the fragile points in economic integration. Reminds you that while big trade deals grab headlines, the everyday practical stuff like shared infrastructure, that can really test if the bloc can stick together and act as one.
Absolutely. The nitty-gritty often reveals the real challenges.
Okay, so beyond the politics, beyond the membership changes, let's zoom out a bit and look at the sheer scale of Mercosur. Its people, its trade, the sort of invisible threads that connect these really diverse countries into this, well, powerful economic and social entity.
Demographically, it's significant. The full members together, that's about 284 million people. And it's a highly urbanized region. You've got global powerhouse cities like Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires, plus many other big urban centers. But what's really striking is the incredible diversity. You have people of European descent, African descent, indigenous descent, and a large percentage of mestizos, people of mixed heritage. There are significant indigenous populations, especially prominent in Paraguay, where Guarani is actually a national language alongside Spanish. That makes Paraguay culturally quite distinct from its neighbors. This whole rich mix, it's an opportunity for cultural exchange, definitely, but also a challenge when you're trying to forge a single, cohesive regional identity.
Yeah, and speaking of languages, that Guarani point is interesting. It really highlights those cultural layers. Portuguese and Spanish are clearly the main working languages, right?
Definitely the dominant ones, yeah.
But Guarani often gets mentioned as an official language. Yet if you actually look at the official Mercosur website, most of the documents, they seem to be just in Portuguese and Spanish. So is it kind of a common misunderstanding that Guarani is a full official language of the organization itself? Or maybe just a nod to its huge cultural importance within Paraguay?
It's a bit ambiguous, I think. Likely more the latter, acknowledging its status within Paraguay.
Still, Mercosur does seem to actively promote learning languages. Brazil makes Spanish mandatory in schools. Argentina and Venezuela teach Portuguese. That kind of educational push feels pretty forward-thinking, trying to bridge those cultural gaps.
It does. Now, if we look at the hard numbers, the economics,
Yeah.
what about trade within the bloc? How has that actually played out?
Well, it saw really impressive growth initially. From just $10 billion when it started in 91, it shot up to $88 billion by 2010. It did dip back down to around $41 billion internally in 2022. Historically, Brazil and Argentina have really dominated that internal trade, each accounting for something like 43% of it back in 2010.
Right.
And the trade balance often favored Brazil.
Right.
But here's the bigger picture perspective. Even at its peak in 2010, trade within Mercosur was only about 16% of the members' total global trade.
Only 16%. Wow.
Yeah. So that clearly shows just how important external partners, the EU, China, the US still are for these economies. And maybe it suggests there's still a way to go in terms of deep internal market integration for Mercosur to really function like one unified economy.
And the structure they've built to manage all this, it sounds pretty comprehensive. Shows they're serious about governance, right?
Yeah.
Very much so. At the top, you have the Common Market Council. That's the highest authority, basically makes the big political decisions. Then there's the Common Market Group, that's the executive arm, puts the policies into action. And below them, you have all these work subgroups. They deal with everything: commerce, customs, labor laws, social security. It's a really broad scope, showing how deep the integration efforts go.
And there's a parliament, too.
Yep, a joint parliamentary committee aiming for some democratic oversight, and a trade commission to handle the nitty-gritty of trade rules. It's this multi-layered setup designed to make things run smoothly and push integration across lots of different areas.
Okay, so what are some of those key areas where they're really trying to integrate beyond just tariffs?
Well, one interesting one is educational integration. They have mutual recognition for primary and junior high courses and certificates between member states. Now, that raises a good question, doesn't it? How does that help beyond just trade? Well, by letting students move more easily, getting their qualifications recognized, you're kind of building a shared regional identity from the bottom up. You're fostering a future generation that maybe sees themselves as Mercosur citizens, not just Argentinian or Brazilian.
That makes sense. Building human connections.
Exactly. Another big area is protecting investments. They have the Colonia Protocol from 1994 for reciprocal promotion and protection of investments. It guarantees fair treatment for investors from other member states. Here's where it gets fascinating again. Even with this push for open investment, countries still carve out exceptions for what they call strategic sectors.
The exception.
Right, like Argentina protecting frontier real estate, Brazil keeping control over mineral prospecting, Uruguay safeguarding its hydrocarbons. This isn't just a small detail, it really highlights that core Mercosur paradox. How truly common can your market be if the really valuable, resource-rich bits are still kept under national lock and key? It's that constant tug-of-war between the ideal of integration and the reality of national interests. A major test of their collective will, really.
So Mercosur clearly has these grand ambitions. It sees itself as more than just a regional market, right? Like a genuine player, a counterweight on the world stage. But as we've definitely seen, trying to achieve that unity, especially when global powers get involved, it's rarely straightforward.
Indeed. Mercosur definitely sees itself as a combined force, something that can balance out other big economic players like, NAFTA, now the USMCA or the European Union. And historically, it played a role in perhaps heading off the free trade area of the Americas, the FTA. That was that big U.S.-led proposal that more than half the Mercosur members famously rejected back in 2005.
Right, I remember that.
That move really showed a preference for a South kind of integration rather than one led by the North. Directly reflects that motto, our North is the South.
But even with that ambition and its undeniable scale, the challenges inside the bloc don't go away. We've seen these internal fights over trade policy, Brazil versus Argentina, Argentina versus Uruguay, even Paraguay and Brazil clashing sometimes. These aren't just small tips, are they? They seem to reveal pretty fundamental differences in how their economies work, their national priorities, and that obviously puts a strain on things. And let's not forget the idea of a common currency. That seems like a huge hurdle still. What are the real roadblocks there beyond just the technical stuff? Is it just politics, or are the economies too different, or maybe countries just don't want to give up control over their own money?
It's really a mix of all those things, but I'd say it's largely rooted in those national sovereignty concerns you mentioned, plus the very real economic differences, the asymmetries between the members. Think about it. Countries like Argentina and Brazil, they have vastly different inflation rates, different approaches to government spending, their economies boom and bust at different times. Trying to impose a single monetary policy on all of them, it's incredibly tough without making one country feel like it's getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I can see that.
The political will needed to hand over control of something so fundamental as your currency. That's immense. But, switching to the external side, Mercosur has notched up some real successes. It shows it can project influence globally. There was that major cooperation agreement with the Andean community, EUCOAN, back in 2004. That helped create a much broader South American trade network. And it's been pretty active pursuing free trade agreements, FTAs with countries all over the world. We've seen deals with Israel in 2007, Egypt in 2010, the state of Palestine in 2011, Lebanon in 2014. More recently, they concluded an agreement with Singapore in 2023, and there's one with EFTA, that's the European Free Trade Association, set for 2025. These deals are really important for diversifying who Mercosur trades with and boosting its global economic presence.
And the really big one, the potential game changer, has to be the free trade agreement with the EU, right?
Brazil's President Lula, he's been pushing hard for ratification since early 2023. Even while Mercosur is kind of in this strategic dance, juggling talks with China and the Eurasian Economic Union too. The EU deal itself, the agreement in principle, that was reached way back in 2019, and they finally concluded negotiations in December 2024. If it gets ratified, it promises to slash over 90% of tariffs between the two blocs. And here's where it gets really interesting. This could create one of the absolute largest free trade areas on the planet, could totally reshape global supply chains, and Mercosur is standing within them.
Yeah, if we connect all this to the bigger picture, Mercosur really embodies that constant push and pull, doesn't it? That tension between wanting economic cooperation and holding on to national sovereignty. It's like this living example of the ideal of a common market constantly bumping up against the messy realities of different politics, different economies. The whole story of Mercosur is just this compelling saga of ambition, compromise, and this ongoing struggle to forge a unified South American identity, all while dealing with this incredibly complex web of pressures, both from inside and outside.
Wow, yeah. What a journey we've taken right into the heart of Mercosur. From those deep historical roots, tangled up with past failures, all the way to where it stands now, a major global economic force, but still very much a work in progress. It's clearly dynamic, always evolving. You see the successes, trade deals, shared education goals, global agreements, but you also see the internal political friction, the membership changes, that constant balancing act between national needs and regional unity.
Absolutely. Mercosur is just this powerful, living illustration of regional ambition. It really shows that economic integration isn't a destination you just arrive at. It's this continuous, often complicated, always evolving process. It's shaped so much by global politics, by the internal dynamics between its members, and by that constant, sometimes conflicting drive for both collective prosperity and, national self-interest. It really is a testament to that idea of South-South cooperation, trying to carve out its own path in a pretty complex world.
So thinking about all that, as Mercosur keeps navigating these internal challenges and trying to build these new global links, what do you think is maybe the single biggest hurdle it faces? To really live up to that motto, our North is the South, and truly cement its unique South American identity on the world stage, Is it those economic gaps between members, the political ups and downs, or maybe something else entirely we haven't touched on, something for you, our listeners, to think about? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We really hope you'll keep exploring regional integration and just how much it shapes the interconnected world we live in.